welcome to another Keelhauled podcast. I'm your host, CaptainLogun, and we've got a little bit of Sea of Thieves news to cover today, so tie yourselves to the mast and hold fast. Ahoy there, pirates. I hope you had yourselves a good week and a good weekend. I know I did. This week, we're going to be talking about Sea of Thieves' current state of the game, given that we have just recently had the March update, as well as some interesting things that happened to me on the seas this week. And we're going to be talking about the latest upcoming content that is coming to Sea of Thieves as a result of South of Midnight, and what the latest Switch 2 Direct held in store for Microsoft. So all that and more in this week's episode of the Keelhauled podcast. But before I get into any of that, I have to thank the patrons. They are the ones that went over to patreon.com/Keelhauled podcast to support this content and make it easier for me to continue making these episodes. As you guys know, I love to cover Sea of Thieves for you, and there's going to be some topics this week that are going to be a little critical, as always. So I want to make sure that folks know that I do appreciate the support that is given to me, whether it be on Twitch or over on Patreon, or even just on YouTube with a like and subscribe, sharing it with friends, having a conversation about what you think about the propositions I make for changes to the Sea of Thieves game as a whole, or whatever. I appreciate you. So thank you so much. I like to call out the names each week. So here it is. Thank you to A Chick, L Cute, Balls, Blue Turtle V1, Captain Chonky, Captain Longsharts, Chopper 918, Chateau Noof, Super Pack, Zombie Killer, Cosmic Johnson, Static Mirror, DavrimTV, El Jefe Esteban, Godhammer 6, Carl Embo, Kylea the Aficionado, Evil Morpheus, Space Admiral Ors, Xbox Mike 29, Regis Stella the Brony Pirate, Ribloid, Rustbelt Kid, Shoe Daddy 13, Scamelt 666, The Demon Jester, Tommy D, TN Professor, Vibrolux, Wailing Witch, Big Bad Pad, Mina Fairy, The Lore Chronologist, Deadeye Dre, Hager Owl, Jeff H, Captain Duckweed, Evil Martha, Peter Miller, Rooski Doo, Thor Von Blitz, Luke Lore the Insipid Ghost, and Zam. Wow. Thank you so much for your love, for your support, and shout out to Zam for giving me a little bit of kudos on the Destiny episode last week. I appreciated knowing how much he loves Destiny, that he had approved of it for the most part. Talking about like the different items and stuff with the Destiny 2 crossover. It meant the world to me to see that. As always, like everyone that kind of gives some feedback, I always appreciate that. So with that, let's get into the episode. Ahoy there, pirates. First up on today's docket, I feel it is absolutely necessary that we cover the same information and news that Sea of Thieves provides to us as well, too, in a timely manner. So with that, I want to make sure that you all know that so far Sea of Thieves has been posting some stuff online. The most prudent information that we found out, not only just the results of the latest SOT contest, but that they have told us what the top 10 most popular pig names are. So we're going to be covering those for the next hour. One name per 10 minutes, which should get us at least for six of the ones. I might have to go a little bit longer and cover the next 4 names for this. Might be a little bit longer episode as a result of that. So let's go ahead and jump into that. And that was all of them. So I know it's been a little bit longer of an episode, so I appreciate you those all hanging out with me as I kind of went through the origin, the history of all these names, and the relationship to us versus pigs, and how we should foster that kind of relationship when naming our pigs, and how important it is that we be good stewards to them and not turn them into pork chops when possible. So definitely appreciate that. Standouts definitely come in at number 2 and number 7. Those are definitely my favorite, with number 4 being the top. So I hope you guys all enjoyed me going through all of those. On a lighter note, I did want to remind everyone that the Devourer sweepstakes is still going on. You can still enter that. That is something that you can do daily. The sweepstakes ends on May 12th, 2025. The best way to go to this is to go over to the Microsoft website, log into your rewards, go to redeem, and then look in there for the sweepstakes called the Sea of Thieves, the Devourer. You can redeem that for 1 entry for 200 points or 25 entries for 1,000 points. Just depends on how many points you have saved up at the moment. You can get a fair amount each day, but it is definitely a lot less than it used to be. And each day that you submit this, you will have those entries added to the pool so that you can actually have a chance for this to win. The prize is just 1 controller, the Devourer, with a Megalodon on there. So this is something that is open to the United States, all 50 states, including Washington, D.C., Puerto Rico, and unfortunately excludes other jurisdictions for the U.S. Virgin Islands and U.S. territories for the American website. Now, there are websites for other territories, I guess. So the UK one, you have to go to the UK Microsoft website, and similar with like the Canadian one and stuff. So make sure that you're going to your appropriate Microsoft site, not just the us.com rewards program for microsoftrewards.com. And again, that is starting, or it has started now, will end on May 12th of 2025. And you can enter in as many times as you want each day, up to 25 entry points. So it's 1, 5, 25. If you really wanted to do 6, you could do 6. You could do 12. It's totally up to you, but you do have to make sure that your legal name is part of your account as well too, which is why I have issue with this, because I'm not a fan of when they force you to have like legal requirements when they can contact you by email and get those requirements, or even not even necessarily needing that, just having your account and an address to be able to send it to. I would prefer people that way. If you have anonymity with your account, then at least that is still relatively protected, because whatever name is on your account is the one that currently is displayed on your Microsoft account. So just be aware of some of the protections that you might want to take if you do want to do that and you do want to enter into this. Otherwise, you can always head over to the website, take a look at the actual rules for this, because you can send in a 3x5 piece of paper that's handwritten with your full name, complete address, phone number, date of birth, and email address associated with your Microsoft Rewards account, and then mail that to Microsoft Rewards International Sweepstakes number 9, free to enter, to the address according to that, which is always an interesting way to go about it. It always reminds me of I can't think of the movie that it was. I think it was Brilliant Minds, where one of the students at the school had like filled out a ton of the postcards and mailed them in just on a statistical basis that they were going to win a decent amount of the prizes for the sweepstakes. And that was one of those things where I was like, oh, okay, so that's why they want you to hand print this if you're going to send in a 3x5. So, but yeah, the controller's still out there, still available for you to enter into it. I still would love to have one of these just to be able to have like a showpiece for Sea of Thieves, given that there have been so few Sea of Thieves controllers released from Xbox in general. And I just think this is kind of a cool thing. So if you guys are still listening and you aren't completely ticked off at me for the little prank about the pig names earlier, I figured I'd go into those as well too. It was kind of interesting. Number 10 coming in at Waddles. Number 9 being Wilbur, which I believe is a Charlotte's Web reference, if you're familiar with that book and or movie. Truffles was number 8, which that's fair, Truffle Pig. Porky I liked because it kind of reminds me of either Porky Pig from Looney Tunes or Porky as the name of the one fighter pilot in the Star Wars New Hope, number 4. 6 is John Pork, which I don't get. I do not understand John Pork. Number 5 is Pork Chop. Very, very understandable. Number 4, Chris P. Bacon. Chris, middle initial P, Bacon. That's a good one. I like that one. Number 3 is Pumbaa from Lion King. Love it. Number 2, Bacon, obviously. And then number 1, Hog Tua. Hog Tua. I joke not. I am still very proud of A Chicken Mai's pairing of names. Hers, I believe, is Oscar. Mine is Meyer. And so yeah, if you like hot dogs, Oscar Meyer. So yeah, I don't know who's going to have the third one and if that's actually going to pass the naming conventions, but that's a story for a different day. So yeah, that was the most popular pig names. I hope you all don't hate me for the joke earlier. It's going to be a little bit of a shorter episode this week. We have not really seen or heard much from Rare as a result of the end of the 7th anniversary, as well as the March update. Chances are things are going to be quiet for a while as they are just looking to kind of roll into the next set of things going on. I would expect next week, let's see, this is the 6th. So yeah, not this week, but most likely next week, we will probably get news on the 14th or 15th about the April update and what that will contain, or at least have any kind of information on. As the moment, we are still waiting on boars to appear, wild boars to appear on islands. We now have the hunting spears, which honestly, kind of thinking about it, I'm kind of curious how you all are doing on your spear commendations. How do you like them? What do you think about them? Because it's a little bit of a mixed bag for myself. So I was kind of checking my commendations today or this weekend as I was kind of working on Sea of Thieves, and I wanted to kind of get a gauge on how things are going for everyone, because it's been a little bit of a mix between what I thought would happen versus what didn't happen when it comes to the hunting spears. So today, for example, I went sailing with a chick, and we went to a fort that a couple of merchants had been working towards. And we had just gotten a bunch of spears, and we went to go out to get a hungering one that had spawned literally right after we had killed a barnacle dread, and the hunting one despawned, or the hungering one despawned. And it was like, okay, well, that was kind of weird. We literally put a bunch of shots into it and went to go and finish it off with the hunting spears, and then it just despawned. So it was very, very particular. And this was like right off of the shores of Port Merrick. So no clue what's up with the spawn rate on that or how that happened. But needless to say, we couldn't dive because we just had bought like a bunch of spears. And the barnacle dread was the last one that we had killed, so we didn't have anything to use. So we were sailing around to go drop off some crates that ended up being in a different location that I didn't realize at the time. So we went over to this fort to go use some of the spears against enemy ships. And at present, this was the issue that I really had with it, because we sailed over there. We had gotten a couple shots in, and unfortunately, I'm not quite sure if all of the hits are registering on the commendations, because at the moment, I only have pierce enemy ships with hunting spears for 1 out of 15, which I could have sworn, and I'll probably have to go back and watch the VOD because I was streaming this. I'll probably have to go back and double check to make sure that I was actually firing multiple ones, because I may have missed, but at present only 1 is there. I do like the hunting spears as a way to get initial damage in on the ship. The thing that I really like about them is that if you have someone who goes over to board the ship and they're able to, take care of the enemy crew and have some free time, they can go over and pull out the spear head and actually cause the tier 1 to become a tier 3, which will definitely help when it comes to sinking. And as because you are you have these physical spears in your hand, there's a good chance that if you go and you board a ship, you could take a spear with you as you jump off the back of the boat, throw it into the ship to cause damage, and then try to board while they are maybe going down to address the spear. So definitely try to think about how to use these outside of the normal convention. Like, you don't necessarily have to use these with a cannon. You can use this as a distraction. Same thing with like bone collars. Like, if you have a hunting spear, and this is going to be the combination of buttons and bumpers that controller players would have to jump through or complete is on par with most fatalities from Mortal Kombat 2, not 3 and not 1, number 2. So I would urge you to, take this into consideration with a grain of salt when I say something like, when you are going to jump off the back of a ship to board someone, take with you 1 bone collar, maybe 2, and a hunting spear if you happen to have them. What you can then do is, and I think this would be a good way to go about it, throw the hunting spear into the ship if you know you're going to be able to board them or not, and cause that damage regardless. They will then have a hold that they have to deal with, which is definitely one thing above just fire or a blunderbomb or a bone collar, right? Swap to, and because you can set yourself up to do this. You can launch the spear ahead of time. You know, you got that throwing distance even in the water, as far as I know. So then you throw the blunderbomb, you switch over to blunderbomb, you throw your throwable onto the boat, so that there are now skeletons that will prevent them from being able to just easily guard the ladders, right? Then you can go and try and board them. And hopefully with the spear, a bone collar, and maybe some fire, you can get enough chaos going onto the ship that you'll be able to board, especially if they're good at guarding ladders. Now, it's only going to buy you a short window of time, so you want to make sure that you try and do this as something that you can actually board them, as opposed to just throwing the hunting spear. That kind of goes back to my feelings on how many hunting spears are in the world. Now, I'm not going to say that this is something that is an issue right now, because I'm aware that Sea of Thieves is actually monitoring this kind of stuff. But it is something that I was thinking about today as we were kind of running away from someone who funny launches off of the ladders to try and board us. Because thankfully, you know, we'd been able to prevent them from boarding or doing anything integral, but it's definitely apparent that people are still trying to funny launch from ladders to try and get that board, because I did not hear any cannon fire from the ship that was pursuing us, but yet there was someone enough ahead of us in the water to be able to try and grab our ladder and board. Thankfully, you know, sword is still king, and still very good at preventing people from getting onto the actual ship. So with all of that being said, I think that the hunting spears have added a really nice change of pace to Sea of Thieves, that I think that they are on par with Tridents, but for PvP. And that as much as I would love for us to be able to use these more frequently, I understand the restrictions in place that they have. Now, last episode, I talked about adding a barrel to Hunter's Call emissaries or just on sea posts to be able to add a easier way to gain access to hunting spears without necessarily needing to, dive into the shop for the actual emissaries. I will say that I've had fairly good luck as of late without necessarily having to buy things to be able to open up. The one issue that I think I have right now with the game that I'm noticing is a stop point is one, the communication when it comes to developers to not consumers, but players, the community. That's the word that I was looking for. The communication between the devs and the community when it comes to purchasing items from vendors that are no longer able to be claimed is a big point in contention for me. I think that is something that harms the health of the game. When you go to purchase, say, like hunting spears or a storage crate or whatever, and you go to claim it from the vendor, but the vendor, for whatever reason, doesn't register, it doesn't actually process the transfer of item, the inventory, it doesn't create the item for you, right? That is in turn remedied or worked around by purchasing like a trinket from the shipwright. Well, unfortunately, that is not the way to incentivize people from buying trinkets from the captaincies, because not everyone's going to be a captain. So what's the recourse there? Well, thankfully, you can go to another vendor and purchase something from them and claim it from them, which will then fix the hiccup, as it were, with the other vendor. Like if, so for example, tonight was a good example because I purchased 5 spears from the Hunter's Call emissary over on Port Merrick. It locked up, prevented me from being able to buy it. I went over to the emissary, the Merchant Call or the Merchant Alliance emissary, purchased a cannonball crate, was able to claim the cannonball crate from the emissary, and then I was able to go back over to the Hunter's Call emissary and then claim the 5 spears. So if you guys run into this, definitely make sure that you try clip it if you can. I know Xbox has the share feature that'll grab 30 seconds of it, and have that submitted as a bug. I know I'm asking for a lot by by forcing people to have to go and interact with the Rare in a way that is outside of just enjoying their game. But it is one of those things that I think is something that still needs to be talked about on a regular basis, so that things like black screens, which are still prevalent, things like funny launching, things like the hiccups with vendors, these are all known issues that are still happening within the game that we have not actually seen like a solid fix for. And as a result, definitely makes it tough to say like, okay, well, you know, I'm enjoying the game. I want to jump in, but there are certain things that are always going to be frustrating for me. And because of that, there's things that I hope that Rare is able to help kind of address. And on top of it, I think this is something that I think Rare understands. And it's obvious, like based on their communications with us, that they are currently looking for people that they are going to use to help try and bring a team on to be able to address the current state of the game and do some better QA for that. Which leads me into the next item on today's docket. Drinks coffee for dramatic effect. Frame rates. Let's talk about FPS. I'm sure you guys have noticed it. If you haven't, then kudos. Hopefully you've had a really smooth sailing session. One thing that I've noticed that has been being talked about with a couple of the different creators out and about, and something I was actually talking with Davrim over at Pirate Talk Radio tonight. We were talking about the hiring of QA people for Rare, which would come from either the community or just outside sources, but they are currently actively looking to hire people for their QA team, folks that are prevalent in being able to break the game and look and test for things that are extremely integral to the health of the game, with known issues that they need to test on a regular basis. Which always kind of brings me back to Godhammer, who one of the patrons and supporters of the content talks about the current dynamic in Insiders, where reputation is the earned requirement for the rewards in the game as opposed to renown, which means that content that needs to be tested may be ignored due to the nature of players playing the Insider program to get rewards, not necessarily test out features. Whereas if you base the progress of what you're rewarded with on renown instead of reputation, then there's more incentive for players to play naturally and go and test out features that may earn them renown, but may not necessarily be tied to reputation, which hopefully will alleviate some of the issues that the devs run into, where content isn't tested by people who are nitpicky or not, a little too grumpy maybe on the forums, who don't necessarily offer positive or good critique, but are there maybe to just kind of degrade or derail the conversations that are being had over on the forums, which kind of comes back to the idea of hiring people for Rare to help with the QA for this. And as such, one of the things that I think A-Chick was talking with me and recommended that we talk about is some of the content creators are being approached about some of the current issues that are in the game, especially in this particular situation tied to FPS or frames per second, and where there are dips, and trying to reconcile if there is a pattern or some sort of a thing that happens in the game that causes these dips, because it's something that we were noticing tonight. It seemed like it was very sporadic, but it did happen. And it would go, and this is coming from two people who just have very, very fresh builds on PC, both using Steam and both playing with locked 120 frames per second. And both of us still noticing dips all the way down into the 40s, which is it's surprising, because you would expect that if the game is optimized at both 60 and 120 frame rates and you lock your system to 120 frames, then you should be able to handle having 120 frames per second the whole time. Especially when, say, like my PC, very capable of pumping out somewhere in the neighborhood of 300 frames per second on a regular basis at 1080p. 120 should be easy to stay locked at, but even for whatever reason, there is no spike in ping, so it's not a latency thing, but for whatever reason, the game just drops frames, like major drops in frame rate. And this is something that has been happening for a while, something that Rare is actually actively reaching out to the content creators, specifically the one involved that I think brought this up was LD Silver, that they try and help offer any kind of feedback to Rare as far as like when they notice it, what was going on during this time, so they can help kind of pinpoint the cause states for these frame drops. So I don't know necessarily how they're going about this, but it is very interesting to me that they are literally reaching out to content creators, partners, to try and understand how these things are happening and when they notice them, as opposed to the QA team, which should be in the heart of it at the base camp of Rare, working on the game. So going back to the conversation with Davrim that I had with him, and shout out if you guys haven't listened to Pirate Talk Radio, he recently put out 2 episodes covering the state of season 15 and his review on it in 2 parts. I have not gotten a chance to listen to part 1. I did listen to part 2. I somehow missed part 1. I thought I did actually listen to it, but I guess I hadn't. So I need to go back and listen to that because I always love supporting Davrim. He's a great guy. Definitely worth it to hear his honest opinions on what's going on with the studio, both internally and in the state of the game as well too. So definitely go listen to his content as well too. So going back and to the conversation that I was having with him, it was interesting to have him point out something that I hadn't thought about for a while. So I actually went and checked, and sure enough, looking at rare.co.uk/careers website, the only current roles that they are currently advertising for are the principal VFX artist, which is just someone who helps kind of with like emissives on glowy stuff in games, particle effects, things that, you know, any kind of spell or any kind of like magical effect or practical effect in the game, cannons firing, guns firing, smoke, things like that, you know, like fog, things that's all VFX artists that are putting that effort into. But the noticeable absence here are the QA roles that they said that they were going to be looking for, which kind of concerns me and concerns Davrim as well, because I think the fear here is that Rare is going to hire known people who are going to be brought in to work on this. So names that they're familiar with. And the concern that I have there is that when you bring in people that you're familiar with, you're insulating the kind of conversations that can be had by people who are on a cordial or have a rapport with the developers and may not want to harm that rapport based on their normal job. So, and there's no idea on how these people are going to be paid, if they're going to be part-time, internship, contract, short-term, full-time, no idea based on what they've said they want to do. And if that is actually kicked up or not, which to me, if they're willing to come out and say, hey, we're looking to hire people to form part of the new QA team, as far as like, we want people who know how to break the game, and they're willing to publicly announce that, it means that it's been approved, at least at the studio. Like someone in HR had to get the approval from the studio heads that they are willing to hire someone on for this. That's not just something that you advertise and then come up with the money for that for later on, which I really hope is a paid position, because then there is integrity associated with it. It's not just the honor system. So current roles available right now are principal VFX artists. And I'm genuinely hoping that they will start advertising, because Davrim said that he had not seen this since they announced it, post up on their website. It's still not posted on their website right now. And getting back to the installation issue that I have is I want people to get hired who know how to break games, that don't have any kind of like, you know, I would hope that they love Sea of Thieves enough to know how to break it, but I genuinely hope that they are there with the white hat mentality of, let's break this as hard as we can, so that we are forcing the devs to address the engineering challenges, the technical challenges that need to be overcome before this patch goes live. Because there are other people out there that do not have that white hat mentality, which is if you guys are familiar with hacking, a white hat is typically someone who's hired internally at companies to be able to break programs or hack into systems to ensure that the security team who works in the IT security department can help patch out or prevent breaches into their system from outside hackers. That's the whole goal. It's the white knighting of hackers, essentially. The government does it a lot when they do, when they look for people who are good at hacking. They try to hire them as internal security advisors to be able to help protect systems from being able to be hacked into from outside nations, things like that. So at present, I'm not seeing any current roles available for these QA testers that Rare wants to bring in. I don't want them to be people that are buddy with the developing studio right now. Like, I appreciate that there are plenty of partners out there that have thousands of hours of game time and know all the little bugs and eccentricities with the game and are familiar with all of the little exploits and all the little things that can be done. I don't want them hired. Those are content creators. Let them create. I want people who are at the core of their existence, people of destruction, people who are finding the enjoyment of figuring out what a system is and understanding it to a degree that they know how to break it. I want those people to go in and tear apart Sea of Thieves and show the engineers exactly how they did it, so that the engineers can take a look at the root causes for why this system failed and then be able to patch that, so that we don't have things like funny launches. We don't have things like weird cannonball shots that forces people to go backward instead of out. So that we don't have weird things where megalodons are still consistently flipping boats so that they end up either despawning or you have to wait for the shark to chomp you again. I literally did a Fort of Fortune today, and big surprise there. Congratulations, Logan. You did a Fort of Fortune. I didn't actually do it. But I did complete it. So I went through the trouble, and I was very proud of myself. I gave myself a solid pat on the back. Me and A-Chick absolutely killed it when it came to preventing the kegs on this fort and it was Crow's Nest. So shout out to Captain J, Crow's Nest Fortress. We went and saved every single powder keg on this island. No powder keg was exploded during the 15 waves of this skeleton fort, or this Fort of Fortune. I was very proud of the fact that we did that. We had them all nice little tight little bundle. We didn't mess up at all. We were ready for that Ashen Lord to come out, and we were going to pop him in one giant glorious explosion, and it was going to be great. But whatever reason, something happened. I posted this online. No clue. The Ashen Lord had spawned. We'd completed all the waves. We got all the kegs ready. The Ashen Lord spawns, dragged him from the fort all the way down to one end of the island. I just rezzed A-Chick because she got cornered by a bunch of skeletons who were very rude, the things they say. And we were running across the little pond next to the rocks that had like our keg pile, and we were waiting for the Ashen Lord to come walking towards us so we could kite it closer to the actual keg pile to explode it, right? Mere feet away from where the keg pile was. I was getting ready to say like, okay, let's run over here and we can then kite him closer, and then we'll blow the kegs safely in the water. We won't have to worry about the fire or the explosion, and then he will die and we will reap the benefits as we pull the skull from the sand and cackle. And then the Ashen Lord killed himself. I kid you not. I wish I was joking. The Skeleton Lord was walking, and then out of nowhere just stopped. Death animation, victory music, loot dropped on the ground, and we were just like, what just happened? Literally, we had actually put 0 damage into the skeleton Ashen Lord. Like, I confirmed with her that she hadn't gotten a chance to shoot him because I was resurrecting her, so she didn't get a chance to actually do anything to him, and she was just running over to where I was, and I was just waiting for him to come over closer to the pile of kegs, and he gave up. He just surrendered. He just despawned, and I cannot tell you, I genuinely thought that there was like a hacker nearby. I was like, oh my god, Rare is going to see this. Somebody somehow managed to get this Ashen Lord to despawn, and I'm going to get blamed for hacking. They're going to clip it, and they're going to post it to Rare, and I'm going to lose my account because they figured out a hack. I was walking around, I was like, I don't feel good about this. I don't even trust this. I am looking around for other ships. I'm like, was there another ship? We were completely uncontested. I have no clue what's going on. This is the kind of weird stuff that that Sea of Thieves is doing right now. This is the genuinely like weird stuff that is happening in the game right now. I cannot tell you what happened, why it happened. Was it a free chest of fortune? Yeah. Did I feel good about it? No, I wanted to see the keg pile explode. And I eventually did explode it, but it was very, very disappointing to just have that pile of kegs that we'd worked so hard to save. Every single keg skeleton from every single wave was spared. And we managed to get the keg from that. And it was so ready for it to happen. We got robbed of that. Why? Because bug. Who knows? Like, I don't even like take the golden doubloons away from that vault. I don't care. Just let me go back. Let me do it all over again. Let me have that, rewind time so that I can actually have that explosion and have the sense of vindication that all my hard work of saving every single keg went into good use. This is the weirdness that is going on with the game right now. I'm glad that they figured out some of the commendations for the ancient megalodons. There's been some fantastic fixes in the game, but there are still some very weird things going on with this game that I cannot understand. And given the prevalence in hacking lately, man, it doesn't feel like what's happening is actually meant to happen. Like, I don't know. Has anyone else had an Ashen Lord implode? Because I don't think I've heard about this. I don't think I've seen any of them implode. Not in like the 4 years that these things have been in the game. I've never seen an Ashen Lord implode. But if that's a thing they can do now, I'd sure love to know about it. Or if it's a bug, I'd sure love to know that they're aware of it. So at the end of the day, is the game playable? Yeah. Are there issues? Yeah. Am I still getting reputation, gold, doubloons, all that jazz? Yeah. But I do hope that Rare can figure out who would be the best person to hire for these QA positions, and that these QA positions get listed on the website so there's a little transparency on this for what's required. Because I don't want friends, and I don't want, like people that they know who just happen to be like good sports with the developing team. Like it'd be like if there was a person out there and say they posted a role for say they posted like a podcasting person, for like, hey, we need to hire someone who's just going to produce content for Sea of Thieves. It's going to be a weekly episode for the show. You are there as a marketer and a podcaster, right? And you put out a weekly episode for people for Sea of Thieves, right? I would want them to put that post, like that role, on the website so that it can get a proper application. Because while I may think I would nail it as far as like a content creator, as far as like a podcaster, I would want someone that they hire to be the right role for it. I would want to earn that role, not be like nepotism into that role because I've been making content on Sea of Thieves for 7 years. You know what I mean? Like, I want to know that I deserve the role, not I'm the guy that's still doing it after all these years kind of thing. So I'm hoping that we start to see a little bit of that conversation from the videos get translated into actual proper representations through like the websites and stuff. So I don't know like what's going on there, if that's something that they're still working on, because we haven't actually seen anything pop up, at least from my perspective, and other people who are now telling me that they've been keeping an eye on this as well too. So that's kind of what's been going on with the state of Sea of Thieves. After that, there's one thing that is actually coming to the game that I'm very excited about that I want to talk to you about. So to get back to the original inspiration for the conversation that I was just having here was the commendations for this season. So far, I really kind of like, but one thing that I kind of noticed, and this was a conversation that I was having with Davrim, was the idea that these reputations are all logged in under the Wild Seas commendations for the bilge rats, which At this point, I feel like are a catch-all for everything that is tied to seasons, which honestly makes me think, okay, well, this is kind of odd because for all intents and purposes, this feels like the status quo in that there's not really a whole lot going on with the build rats. The build rats have just kind of been where the original build rat adventures had come in. But then, we had like different events that happened. So like the Forsaken Shores, Cursed Cruise, Shrouded Spoils, so stuff like that. But then we got in new things like the Fort of the Damned, Cruise of Rage, Ashen Winds that were more like world events and things like that nature. And then we started to get things like Guilds of Gold, Treasures of Adventure, the War Chest, Pirates of Mischief, that all tied to seasons and things like Chest of Fortune. When in actuality, most of this is all seasonal content, seasonal stuff derived from the addition of stuff to the world, not necessarily what's tied to the build rats. So I feel like we're at a point now where we just kind of expect that if there's seasonal content, that it's going to fall under the build rat commendations, which are pretty heavy. You've got about 773 commendations for build rats, which is quite a hefty sum. So I wanted to toss this idea out there and address the fact that the build rats as a whole, ever since, Duke went off to reveal that he was a Dark Lord and part of the Dark Brethren at this point, now we are here with Lorena. And Lorena, for all intents and purposes, has been very quiet. Well, after being shamed for so many years for all of the things that, she's tried to help us with, always telling us, like, hey, come over here, I have something to tell you. It's come to the realization that the build rats don't really represent anything in Sea of Thieves. Lorena is the only build rat that is in the game. Duke being a Dark Lord now, and forever, for all intents and purposes. The build rat commendations come into question about what the concept of the build rats are. The sense of adventure and exploration is still there, but because each season brings in new commendations tied to the content that's brought in by them, it feels like we need to reassess what the build rats are. Should the build rats become their own company? Should the build rats be broadened out to include new representatives or have better integration with the commendations? Because at the moment, they're really just a point of interaction at the front of every tavern to, if you want to, talk to about some of the stuff that's going on in each season, but there's not much else outside of that. So is it one of those things that you could take some of the commendations that are brought in as a result of the content that's delivered in each season and have a commendation that's set up for each season? So you have seasonal content as the header or bucket that you stick all of these commendations in, and each season gets its own little icon. So instead of it being Wild Seas or Pirates of Mischief or The Flame Rises or The War Chest, you have it Season 15, Wild Seas, Season 14, Pirates of Mischief, Season 13, The Flame Rises, so that players have a little bit understanding of the chronology around the content that's actually coming to the game. Now, granted, there is a lot of this that is very old school stuff when Shrouded Spoils, The Cursed Cruise, Forsaken Shores, Mercenary Voyages, Cruise of Rage, Legends of the Sea, that don't really have like a season attached to them. That's fine. Keep those associated with build rats, when build rats were something that people would go to find out what's going on in the game. Duke always had a different position that he was in, whether he was lambasting, on the top of the tavern, I can't even think of the tavern, the bar. There we go. Trying to be on, lay on the table, sit at the table and look ugly, lean against the barrel and drink. He would always have like a different Duke. There was always these different Dukes. Now it's just Lorena, and Lorena is more of a point of contact if you're looking to buy in the letters of, oh gosh, what are they called? The letters of recognition? No, I don't think that's it. Dang it, I can't remember what the letters are called. But the ones from each trade company that's like, hey, congratulations, it's been another month and the ledgers have reset, which means that you get a new letter of commendation. Is it commendation? That basically gives you a free level in Sea of Thieves, which at this point, when there's 500 levels for each trade company, having the reset be there feels less impactful as when it was literally just from 1 to 75 or even 1 to 50. And it was more like, okay, we are like 2 levels away from hitting Pirate Legend. We can grind out 1 level and then we buy the last one and I can finally get Pirate Legend. Now it's more like, yeah, one more letter. And, it's, you know, it's from 80 to 82 or 80 to 81, you know, it's like, cool. All right. Well, that's 1 level closer to another ring, you know? So, that's a whole nother side topic, by the way, that whole addressal of leveling and how that system works. I think could be done completely differently as well too. But I keep thinking, going back to these Bilge Rat adventures, is that the Bilge Rats themselves do not really reflect like what the involvement, because in my mind, when I'm looking at Wild Seas and I'm looking at the commendations for this, we've got Hunter of the Red Maw, and the title associated it. You're going to need a bigger bucket where you throw a bucket of water onto a feared red maw to attempt to extinguish it. You've extinguished a fire during an encounter with an ancient red maw. You've got the overheat a red maw with an explosive for friendly fire. You've got the dread barnacle commendations, like deal damage to it with a trident of dark tides or a bubble wand. Kill an ocean crawler with a trident of dark tides during the barnacle dread attack. Sell grizzly ancient feared teeth, from the red, sell big red teeth, sell big red scales. And then same thing for the Barneys, sell the teeth, sell the scales, get the ancient, hit megalodons, and krakens and ancient megs using the hunting spear, pierce an enemy ship with a hunting spear, hit sharks with hunting spears. All of these, in my mind, should be something that ties to the Hunter's Call reputation. Because if I go to the Hunter's Call reputation, and I'm taking a look at what was added for them, and I'm trying to determine like, okay, well, what did we have added to us? The Call of the Hunter, very similar stuff to what we have with all the other reputations. Complete voyages, earn gold as a under the Hunter's Call, complete nautical miles sailed as a Hunter's Call, sell treasured fish to the Hunter's Call, sell curious fish scales, sell shark's teeth, sell precious pearls, sell kraken tentacles, sell irresistible bait packs, have the elegant fishing float packs sold as well, get the finest fishing hooks packs sold as well. These are all commendations that fall along with like the emissary grades within the Hunter's Call emissary. So why aren't the ancient megs and the hooks and stuff, why aren't the boar commendations all associated under the Hunter's Call? Is it just because it's associated with the stuff that's brought in during season 15? Well, there's no implication for that because it's all under the Bilge Rats, but the Bilge Rats don't label anything based on seasons. So there's no real tie between that. So if someone were fresh to the game and they came in, took a look at the commendations and they were working on Hunter's Call stuff and they had to keep flip-flopping between Bilge Rat and Hunter's Call emissary, it would be very annoying for them to try and understand, why are the Bilge Rats, a company that doesn't actually exist in Sea of Thieves outside of one representative outside of every tavern, the one person that is silent now because of all the what am I trying to say here? All of the backlash. That's what I was going for. All of the backlash for Lorena constantly yelling at you every time you approached her in Sea of Thieves is now silent. There's only the one representative, and even she's barely even recognizing herself as a Bilge Rat, someone who didn't even want to take on the title of Pirate Legend because she would rather be a neutral party to all of this. Now has Hunter's Call emissaries and stuff tied to her, when realistically it would make more sense for these to fall under the Hunter's Call emissary. So the whole UI system, the whole commendations, and to be fair, I think that the commendations that they came out with this season for the ancient megs, the harpoons, and the eventual boar ones, whatever those end up being, and this is me just kind of assuming that there will be. I don't actually even know if there are going to be ones. I'm sure there's going to be. Like, you probably have to kill them with hunting spears. I don't know. But with those all being tied to what's coming within the actual like season, it's going to be really strange when we hit up when we look at the commendations for the Hunter's Call and see all of these ones that don't associate with the bilge rats, but associate better with Hunter's Call. But for whatever reason, the bilge rats are the ones that are actually asking you to do these. Like I get the chest of fortune, 100%. I understand the Reaper's chests and the Reaper's bounties, less so much. Why aren't those tied to Reapers? So there's a whole kind of like connection to what is associated with what trading company and why the bilge rats are the catch-all for all of these commendations. And I know this is a very non-issue. If you guys were listening to the earlier half of this episode, there are 101 things about this game that I think would be better things to address prior to them taking a look at like which bucket does these commendations deserve to be in, kind of thing, right? But at the end of the day, it still kind of comes down to the mentality that I try to put myself into when I'm having these conversations about Sea of Thieves is, how does this look to a new person playing the game? That is going to be the driving goal for Rare as a company who is building this game, constantly addressing. How does this game feel to someone fresh to the game? Because the entire point of bringing someone into the game is going to keep them invested in playing it. It's going to have that word of mouth about them getting friends to jump on and play it as well, which translates into either purchases through Game Pass or the game itself, whether it be on PlayStation or Xbox or Steam or the Xbox app on PC. These all come into purchases for the game, which then leads you into that gateway drug of buying stuff through the Emporium, whether it be through crossovers with Bungie in Destiny 2 or Halo or Forza, or what I'm going to say is probably one of the ones that people should be actually checking out, especially if you're on an Xbox platform, which is South of Midnight. So right now we have a lot of reason for folks to jump into the game, but I'm going to let you know that if you have an opportunity to do this, and I hope that new players get this and they then go check out the game associated with it, starting on April 8th through the 15th, you can log into the game. All you have to do is simply set sail between those dates, and you'll be able to get the Sails of the Woven Wonders livery set. And this is something that'll go straight to your ship set. These are blue and white. They represent the blue bottle tree, which is a part of South of Midnight. And if you buy the exclusive to the Sea of Thieves X edition, you will get the Misted Sails of Woven Wonders variant along in its bonus cosmetics. Now, here's where the rub is for me. I am someone who will not need to buy the X edition for Sea of Thieves. I already own the game in multiple places. I own it physically, only one copy at the moment. I'm actually still kind of on the hunt for an anniversary edition version of the game for the box art, but I own it on Steam thanks to the beta test that I took care of, or that I did back when they were beta testing for Sea of Thieves. I own the PC version as well as the Xbox edition digitally, because that was what I bought when I got the pre-order bonus for the Black Sea Dog set, right? So I own at least 3 copies of the game after having bought the game multiple times just physically and given those copies away. I have no reason. And oh, you know what? I forgot. My bad. I actually bought the premium edition through PlayStation as well too. So I have the PS5 version of the X edition, but that was for the 2024 edition of Sea of Thieves. There's no indication here about whether or not that edition is inclusive of these sales, just that the Sea of Thieves X edition will also include the variant for the Woven Wonders liveries, which are white and black. And it's a thing to collect. It's a thing that I want to collect, but I'm very curious to try and understand, like, why did they associate this with the Sea of Thieves purchase of the X edition as opposed to the actual South of Midnight X edition? Because the X edition for South of Midnight is $50. It's the same price as Sea of Thieves. If you buy Sea of Thieves, you're already going to have the game. You already get a bunch of cosmetics. The value is there for the X edition, right? If you don't have those cosmetics, which I do. Then looking at the South of Midnight, it would make sense that anyone that pre-purchased the premium edition, which gives you the early access that you could have been playing on the third, and all of the digital extras for that, including like the director's edition, the comic, the soundtrack, the art book, all of that stuff. Really cool that they did that. They are not tying that these liveries to that purchase. It's very peculiar to me that they're incentivizing people who may not actually need the X edition of Sea of Thieves, who want to have these, to not have a means of doing it, either by purchasing South of Midnight or the premium edition and or Sea of Thieves X edition. So I'm kind of upset by this, but I'm also, it's like, you know, it's not the big deal, but it's just kind of a weird way of going about it. I will be sailing the seas between April 8th and the 15th to get these. I actually did a review for South of Midnight for XEP or Xbox Expansion Pass. I gave this a highly recommends. If I had to give it a score, I'd give it a 9. It is a fantastic game. It's somewhere around 10 to 12 hours. So you can definitely spend more time in there as you want. It is very light on combat, very heavy on story, and very good at music and art. So it doesn't take long. It's a very beautiful game, a true testament to the American South, and showcasing some of the beauty and interesting stories like folk tales that are tied to the American South that I personally didn't ever hear about, but it's really amazing to actually see like how that all comes around, and gives you a better understanding of like the blue bottle tree and its importance in the American South as far as like a cultural like kind of icon for warding away evil, right? So those are going to be made available. Definitely make sure you set a reminder, April 8th through the 15th. You can log in. It was nice to see this promoted by Rare, as opposed to the leaks that were showing up because people had purchased the Sea of Thieves X edition and got access to it early and were sailing around with it, not knowing that it was something that was actually considered pre-release content. But again, it's so bizarre to me that they're tying this to the Sea of Thieves X edition and not to some sort of connection to playing or having earned. Because, like, for example, when the Rat Catcher title came out, that was tied to an achievement for the Battletoads remake that came out a while ago. So you had to play up into a certain point in the game, and you earn an achievement by actually completing that chapter in the game, which would then unlock the Rat Catcher title in Sea of Thieves. To me, completing the first 3 chapters of South of Midnight to earn this variant would be a far better approach to rewarding players for engaging in other Xbox IP. Does this kind of, harm the PlayStation folks out there who may not have access to South of Midnight, given that that is currently still an exclusive for Xbox? Yes, but also Microsoft company, do whatever you want. It's a business. It's a private company, or it's not a private company. It's a public company, but it's a private business. It's in the private sector. There we go. So they can do whatever they want. It's their ballpark to play in. If people don't like it, they can get their glove and go, kind of thing. You know, I have no control over this. It's one of those things where I just have to suck it up and deal with the fact that I'm not going to spend $50 for a version of the game that I already own, that I can't be sure if I'm going to get access to, because it was a year earlier when I supported Rare on PlayStation by purchasing the X edition over there, and I got the Ruby Stingtide, a rapier, I think it was, and a sales that I can't use outside of the PlayStation. Like, they're exclusive to the PlayStation version, so I can't use those when I'm just playing on PC or Xbox. Like, I dealt with it then. I'm seeing the weirdness now, and I'm saying, can we not? there were better ways to go about this back when the Battletoads game came out, and people were like, okay, I can play Battletoads for a few hours, get to this point in the game just to get the Rat Catcher title. Fine, I can do that. This one, it's like, oh, just spend money, even if you don't need the cosmetics. If you want that, you're just gonna have to spend money. So just make sure you're logging in between the 8th and the 15th. And if you guys get if you get a chance, please go check out South of Midnight. I loved that game. I think they did a fantastic job with it. The soundtrack is on my Spotify list at this point. Like, I added the Spotify soundtrack because the music was so unique and so interesting, and the stories told in that are so they're painful, but they're also just full of emotion. Like, you really especially if you're an empath, you can really kind of feel like, oh, you know, people hurt people kind of thing, you know, and you hope that people find resolution even after things have been done in their past. You know, history is history. You can't change the past, but you can at least move forward with the future, and hopefully that will be a little bit brighter of a time for you. But yeah, very good storytelling, very good storytelling. Compulsion did a fantastic job with that, and I was provided a code, by the way, by them. So take my words with a grain of salt, because I didn't have to buy the game. But outside of that, there's really not a whole lot going on in Sea of Thieves. So I'm going to leave it at this. I'm going to say, hopefully you guys are having a good time out there. If you guys get a chance, Switch 2 got announced. There's been some interesting stuff going on. Politics have found their way into gaming and have just kind of slapped gamers in the face and said, hey, guess what? These are here and you're going to have to deal with it. So I would say for anyone that is currently in the market for hardware, to really keep an eye on how pricing is right now, because there is a fear that if you're in the market for hardware, that those costs may start to rise as a result of implications from the current US government. Whether or not that pans out has yet to be seen. We'll find out more as time goes on. Hopefully that's not the case, because at the moment, cost is everything for folks. For a small percentage of people that don't need to worry about, less of an issue. But for folks that want to try and either get like a new console or new hardware, there's a lot of fear going on about, or anxiety, I should say, around what the cost of things are going to be going forward in the next few years. So hopefully it's not bad. Hopefully it's not terrible. And genuinely, I hope it all blows over, so that I don't have to worry about it ever again. But we'll find out. We'll have to see how it goes. But as of right now, it was kind of interesting to watch the Switch announcement for the Switch 2, or the Nintendo announcement for the Switch 2. We didn't see Halo Master Chief Collection for Nintendo. We did not see Sea of Thieves. We didn't even see Hi-Fi Rush brought over to the Switch 2, or announced for the Switch 2. In fact, outside of, I think, Tony Hawk 3 and 4, which is technically Activision Blizzard's product, we didn't have any kind of collaboration with Microsoft over at Nintendo that they were speaking about when it came to the third-party support for the Switch 2 at launch, which tells me either two things. One, Microsoft doesn't have anything planned at this time, which would be very odd considering there are legal requirements that they have to support the Nintendo Switch platform with Call of Duty, which was also confirmed as a result of the lawsuits or the acquisition proposals for purchasing Activision Blizzard. When Microsoft was looking to do that, Bobby Kotick can disappear off the planet, and he confirmed that there is a version of Call of Duty being produced for the Nintendo Switch 2, which is also confirmation that we were going to be getting a Switch 2 at the time of the actual like hearings. But no conversation about Sea of Thieves coming over the Switch 2, which is an odd thing. So either those aren't happening, which I don't think is the case, or they will be announced at a later time, closer to when Microsoft is ready to start doing a little more announcing of what they're going to be doing, and that they aren't going to be doing it on Nintendo's front. They're going to be doing it on the Xbox front. So at this point, I am currently scheduled. I've got my flight and hotel all worked out for XEP, but I'm going to be going to Summer Games Fest. And if there is an Xbox Fest that will be going on during that weekend, I will be trying to get access to that, because it's during those conferences that I believe we'll start to hear a little bit more about whether or not Sea of Thieves is actually going to show up on a Nintendo console, which if they do, I would be very surprised. We're still seeing a lot of the art team creating content, not only for Destiny 2 with Bungie, but for South of Midnight. There's rumors that there's going to be some Doom content coming for Doom the Dark Ages. But that is something that, Rare has not talked about, and it's purely speculation at this point, whether or not that's actually true. We've already seen there be a Doom controller that has yet to be announced that showed up on Phil Spencer's shelf recently during an interview. So whether or not Sea of Thieves actually has livery sets, they may actually have just a full-on livery set for Doom the Dark Ages. As at present, we have the Gears set, we have 2 Halo sets, we have a Borderlands set, we have Ori and the Blind Forest. Gosh, what am I missing here, fam? I know there's another one that I'm missing, but I can't think of what it is. And I'm surprised we haven't gotten a Minecraft one, to be perfectly honest, with a creeper figurehead. That's the fact that hasn't happened and didn't come out with the movie is just wild to me. But I'm imagining that we will get some more cosmetics to line up with Doom the Dark Ages, which is out in May. I think it's May 15th. And then in early June, we will probably have the Xbox showcase, which may or may not have a play fest or an Xbox fan fest during that time, where we will most likely find out for sure whether or not there is a Sea of Thieves edition or a Switch 2 edition of Sea of Thieves coming out. But it does not look like at present that is something that is going to be at launch, which I was actually very surprised about. So if and when that actually happens, we'll hopefully find out more when Sea of Thieves has their little blip in the Xbox showcase that will most likely be on the, let's see, I think it's the June 7th. Is it the 7th? No, what's Saturday? The 8th. So June 8th, most likely the time frame for Xbox to be doing their showcase, because it'll be right around the time that Summer Games Fest is happening. And generally, if people are going to be going to LA for Summer Games Fest, Xbox would probably try to capitalize on everyone being there for that time period and have their showcase that Sunday. So that is kind of the current timeline that we're looking at. April's pretty locked in. Again, I think we're going to find out next week. The trailers are going to start coming out for the content update. That'll probably be later around like April 24th for the April update. I'd be really surprised if it came out tomorrow and they had a launch frame for the 17th. But they've also been pretty quiet. I think the duplication bug with the harpoons may have delayed or at least impacted the team to an extent. Hard to know if they have that as a priority now, as far as adding a patch, which will then come later after testing. So who knows, like if that messed up the timelines or if they had something locked in for the 24th already and they're just going to add this to that. But at this point, expect on the 24th, the update for boars coming to islands. I've already seen jellyfish. I've already seen lizards and the seagulls. Very cute. Definitely appreciate it. Can't wait for more, as long as it doesn't impact performance. And we'll kind of have to wait for a new livery set probably in May around Doom, and hopefully an announcement for the Switch 2 version of Sea of Thieves to be landing. I was planning on trying to get a Switch 2 at launch, but given the launch date is literally the day that I'll be flying out to LA, I do not have anyone that can pick up my package to make sure that, my Switch 2 isn't sitting there for 4 days with, my cat sitting at the door, unable to figure out doorknobs. So at this point, I'm going to have to hold off on a launch version, which is kind of a bummer because I was actually really looking forward to getting in there and getting to try like Legend of Zelda Wind Waker, which is going to be at launch on the GameCube version of the Switch 2 Nintendo Switch Online expansion pack program, which is currently the only way that's going to be able to be playing the Wind Waker version of Legend of Zelda, which is a true like precursor in my mind to Sea of Thieves, outside of all the pirate content that Rare has ever produced. Not to mention a new Donkey Kong game coming out in July, which doesn't necessarily take take the original design, like the Donkey Kong design from the 90s, where Kevin Bayliss had created like the original concept after they had gone in and asked Rare to create a Donkey Kong game. So Donkey Kong Country's DK is now gone. They've redone him, but I think there's still a lot of love and passion for Donkey Kong as a character, and I think this is the Mario Odyssey team that's doing it, and honestly I can't wait for that. So a Rare IP in version is or the Rare version of Donkey Kong will always have to live in the past, unfortunately, but still, in my mind, still something that Rare popularized. And if it wasn't for Rare, Donkey Kong would not have the IP prowess that he does, even in the, you know, the small context of where he stands compared to like Mario and Zelda kind of thing. But looking forward to that. But I guess I'll just have to figure that all out later on. So outside of that, I think that's it for Sea of Thieves news, fam. So I think we're going to wrap things up here. Thank you all so much for hanging out with me this Monday, and whenever you're listening to this. What day are you listening to this? Because I know most of you listen on Monday, and I know most of you listen at midnight my time when this is already done and out, which is wild. So I don't know who you are, but thank you. But you're probably in the UK. It's probably like 8 in the morning on Monday, and you don't even want to bother with work because all of those things that you said were a Monday problem are now smack in front of you. And you're like, ugh, why did I say so many things were going to be a Monday issue? So Pirates, that's going to do it. If you guys have the opportunity, always feel free to like, subscribe on the YouTube version of this. Helps out with the algorithm. Comments are fantastic. Thank you so much for everyone that's been doing those. Really helps with engagement on the videos on that side. Streams are coming up when they can, when I can play something that is Sea of Thieves or something else that is not under embargo. Otherwise, Xbox Expansion Pass is going to have some of the content that I've been working on as far as reviews when it comes to Avowed or South of Midnight, things like that. Trying to put content out over on Xbox Expansion Pass for Xbox adjacent content. Whether it's games that we're interested or not, and keep it here for Sea of Thieves. If you guys are happy with this, you just want to stick to this, don't blame me. Definitely appreciate the support, the love, the sharing. All that makes a world of difference. So thanks for the engagement, thanks for the support, thanks for just hanging out, especially the folks in Discord who are just day-to-day chatting with folks about different things that have been going on. I know it's been really tumultuous in the landscape of gaming lately, and everyone has just been fantastic in sharing some of their victories on the Sea of Thieves Keelhauled Discord. So love you all so much for that. Thank you so much, and look forward to chatting with you guys there or in the Keelhauled Gold Hoarder app channel as well too. So with that, Pirates, that's going to do it. So thank you. I love you, and I look forward to sailing with you on the Sea of Thieves.